All right, and we're live. All right. Ahoy! Good evening,
Hello.
ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow cinephiles. Welcome to this presentation celebrating the enchanting world of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Today, we embark on a delightful journey through the whimsical realms crafted by the brilliant Wes Anderson. Prepare to be captivated by a story that intertwines nostalgia, adventure, and the indomitable spirit of human connection. Um, Welcome to Movie Club, where we watched the Grand Budapest Hotel, and that is in the start of an opening that was written by AI.
Nice.
Better watch your job.
It was like very like I feel like I don't have the personality to like really carry that one. So I am going to go through like just the general thing. We don't have any more clubs coming up this month because this is the last one. But we did listen to The Low End Theory by A Tribe Called Quest for our listening club that we listened to or we discussed last night. So that video is up. If you're interested in that, you can go ahead and listen to that. If you're joining us now live, if you leave comments, either if you're watching it on Facebook or on YouTube, we do get those notifications and comments so you can join into the discussion at any point in time. If you're watching it on the replay, we still get notifications for those comments, and we'd be completely like happy to start this discussion again. So feel free to comment, and we'll chat about it a little bit more. But for this evening, I'm joined by Beckett, Ryan, and Derek here. And
Hello.
I can continue. It continues. The AI continues with like that same like steady like everything is Grant, which kind of fits for Wes Anderson, but
Higher energy. Got to bring up the energy.
So this is a Wes Anderson movie that was released in 2014, and it is. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this because, like, when I think of like Wes Anderson's images, I think of like more The Life Aquatic and like the Royal Tenenbaums. Like he has a very specific visual thing that goes on, and this has less of it than I remember there being, and yet at the same time it is absolutely like the most Wes Anderson movie there is. So I am just going to go ahead and get started with this discussion. If you haven't seen the movie, there's going to be spoilers.
It's the journey, not the destination.
It's true. Especially for this one, because I think I was saying, like, you described the plot of this movie, and it does not match up to the movie at all.
Just be aware that if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to get spoilers, you should tune out now and then come back after you watched it. When the replay will still be up. We'll wait.
We'll wait.
Have you guys watched this movie before?
Mm-hmm.
I have, yes. I don't think I saw it in theaters, though.
I think I did, but I didn't remember it very well.
Yeah, I saw it once before when it came out on Blu-ray or whatever, but I completely forgot almost everything in the movie. But I watched it again before this, so yeah.
Kind of same. Like I remember some very like specific things from the first time I watched, but I was much younger, and I like to call that my dark period of being a cinephile, where I liked watching movies, but I paid attention to absolutely zero of them. So there's a lot of movies that I've definitely seen, but like I go back and revisit them, it feels like I've never seen it. And this
I've consumed a lot of anime that way.
I mean, I'm guilty of, especially in college, like, listen, Fight Club was the best movie ever, Boondock Saints, The Matrix, like, it's all, all those edgy, 300 was the best movie, and then didn't really respect films until later.
Did you guys rewatch the Grand Budapest Hotel before getting on the call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I just noticed Ryan's background.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that this was also going to be the visual for the call.
I started just adding things onto the side because I constantly am looking things up on Wikipedia while we're doing these. So I wanted to just like have it in one spot. And two, it's just our faces. And I feel like having this there is like a good visual of like, this is what we're talking about. Speaking of things that are up on here. So here's just like the standard information on it, including the filming time and the budget in the box office.
Which big hit. I think this is what his most successful film for a long time. It still might be, right?
I think it is. Like when I think of Wes Anderson, I feel like this is the first movie that I actually think of. And then, as with any Wes Anderson movie, including he has a new one coming out next month, and it's the same thing. Huge ensemble cast.
Mm-hmm. Asteroid City. Oh, for this one, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also, maybe George Clooney was in it. I don't know if you read any of that, but there's a shot, and George Clooney won't say if it was him, and Wes Anderson won't say if it was George Clooney. So
I feel like that's like a clear thing of yes, it was.
if neither of them will say it, it's after Fantastic Mr. Fox, so probably.
Yeah. I didn't notice that.
It was in one of the shootout scenes. There's a guy wearing a white tuxedo suit, and he just runs in the background. So it was George Clooney there that day, and they just said, "Yeah, just run through." Entirely possible.
Yeah. Before we get started, I have one last question. What's everybody's favorite Wes Anderson movie?
Life Aquatic.
Good flick. I might actually say. I was going to say it was Darjeeling Unlimited, but I think it might be Rushmore, which is it's barely Wes Anderson. Like that style isn't quite like to the extreme, but as a story, I thought it was one of the more interesting one.
Yeah, it's not one that I would peg as like, oh, that's a classic Wes Anderson movie.
Right. But it's yeah. I don't know. I honestly I think I saw that one a lot on Comedy Central when it was starting out. So I just saw that one the most.
Yeah. I actually find it difficult to pick a favorite because he's been so consistent for a very long time. I mean, Rushmore was 24 years ago or something, wasn't it?
God.
So I actually rewatched all of his live action movies up to this point before watching the Grand Budapest Hotel. And apart from Bottle Rocket, well, yeah, I would say I would put Bottle Rocket definitely on the bottom because that one's like barely a Wes Anderson movie. It seems like it's a good first movie, but it's kind of like anyone could have made it in a way. But I think with Rushmore, it's interesting because it does have the visual style, but then it only applies to the school of Rushmore. And so when the character gets sent to public school, it looks more like the real world. And the Rushmore school itself looks like a Wes Anderson movie. So it's kind of in between. But as for a favorite, I think I might go with the Royal Tenenbaums. But yeah, there are like good parts and bad parts, I think, to all of his movies. But like I said, it's a bit hard to choose.
It's fair. When I was younger, I would always pick the Darjeeling Limited. But after rewatching this, I was like, it might actually be the Grand Budapest Hotel because I have like a great love for just like how dark this movie is, while
so
simultaneously just being just a whimsical, fun journey to be on.
Yeah, I did find it very entertaining every time there was violence on screen. It was also kind of like not just funny, but also like adorable in a way.
Yeah,
Which is,
it was a storybook. It felt like a pop-up book, but then who's it for? Because the content was not, it could easily have been, like a Willy Wonka, like she works in a pastry factory, and but the backdrop of a fictional World War II country, and just everybody dies. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Just
country
damn.
on the brink of a fascist takeover.
What was it? They were the zigzag department, which I liked a lot.
Yes.
Instead of the SS.
A fantastic retelling of a story from World War II that it has nothing to do with World War II. And in fact, is entirely fictional, both in its location and in the war that's happening.
Yeah. I do remember even like this time, and especially the first time I saw it, but this time as well, as thinking about, wait a second, is that a real country? Wait a second, when did that happen? And like, wait, was this a fascist? What? Like trying to place it historically, and then realizing, oh, none of it's real.
No,
but it very well could be.
It's Central Europe in World War II, but it's neither of those things. But just like an interesting story about, human connection, and also just like the images that we put in place, which also goes back to the fact that this is an incredibly dark story that's told in a very whimsical way.
Right. I mean,
the whole thing's a facade.
Well, right out of the gate, right? It's a story being told about, or it's a lady writing in her journal, looking at a statue of a guy while he's narrating his autobiography that we jump into, where he's meeting the owner of the Grand Budapest, who's telling him the story of how he got the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah.
It's just,
which is ultimately turns into the story of just like Monsieur Gustave H.
Right.
Like
so it's I don't know what person we're at this point, right? A story, I guess it's second person. We're listening to somebody tell a story that somebody else told them.
It's like a story within a story within a story about a story.
And then shot with 3 or 4 different aspect ratios, right? We had wide, it was 4:3 when it was in the hotel, and then it was like 2:39 when it was him being told the story. I forget if the future, there was like,
they were all different aspect ratios, and I meant to look into if it had to do with the time frame that they were in and what was the popular aspect ratio for that time frame. But it was like, it's a super interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, I didn't even notice it until like halfway through the movie, and I was like, wait a second, has this been in 4:3 the entire time? That's weird.
It's like when you see like an image that just like slowly like moves in and you don't even realize it.
And then I was like, wait a second, that doesn't look right. Why would he shoot a movie in 4:3? But then also the framing is like perfect for 4:3, so it's obviously shot that way.
Everything about this I would argue, and I haven't seen Asteroid City yet, but I've seen, a lot of the other ones. I'd argue this is the most Wes Anderson movie of them all. Simply because the framing, like you said, but also every shot is a pan or a push in, and it's like all very planned, and I can't imagine what what the art department's budget was. Just Yeah,
it's pretty amazing that Wikipedia lists the overall budget as 25 million, because it seems like it should be much larger than that. Like a lot of this stuff was made in miniature, like the thing that we're looking at now, this view of it. But I watched a few YouTube videos of like the miniatures, and there were like working elevators in miniature, and there were like, I don't know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that was just made by miniatures. There was also a bunch of trees, miniature trees that were made.
Yeah.
I don't think they can be seen here because they looked like taller trees and pointier. But yeah, it's pretty incredible how high the production value was, considering that 25 million is not that much money for such a large cast and for such.
Oh yeah, I have to assume the actors got paid nothing to do these roles, just for the privilege of being in a Wes Anderson film.
Well, not nothing, but not what they're used to getting, to be
Right.
sure.
Yes.
Wes Anderson has like it's an ensemble cast because people just want to be a part of it. And
It's
so
an
you have all these
experience.
you have all these people playing bit roles.
Yeah, like
Um,
Owen Wilson was only on screen for like 2 minutes.
And
Yeah.
he uses the same people over and over and over again, and it kind of adds to the Wes Anderson just vibe
Yeah.
of you know exactly what these characters are going to be about because they're kind of the same in every single one.
Yeah. I was gonna say Bill Murray's role was, you know, he at least had 2 days on set.
I also want to point out though that it's the same director of photography for all Wes Anderson movies.
wow.
So it's Robert Yeoman, who has done pretty much, it seems, every Wes Anderson movie, I think. At
Does
least
that
from what I've seen.
include? Does that include the stop motion ones?
Probably not.
Yeah, I'm looking. I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. I think those would probably go to a different studio. I was not counting them in this, but I also enjoy that like his other stuff is like Get Him to the Greek and Bridesmaids and the
Right.
2016 Ghostbusters, and it's
He
just
did
like
he did Dogma with Kevin Smith. Like
yeah,
I don't think he got to put a lot of. I imagine when working with Wes Anderson, you don't get a lot of input. Like I don't
Yeah.
imagine, short of him telling them where to put put the lights. I don't imagine
it's one
he
of the
got
few like when I see Wes Anderson, I assume he does everything. And that's why
Right.
he uses the same people over and over again, is they are people who are like now know how he works. But yeah,
It's
I don't
also
think it's
well,
representative of anybody else's in its style.
it's also interesting. I mean, again, small thing I noticed is nobody had an accent. Like at
I
no
was gonna
did
point that out too, yeah.
it like the direction felt so like minimalist. Like they're just delivering the lines.
Outside of the people who actually had accents or like were speaking a different language, like all the main cast, no accent. Like it was either American or British, and that's what you got. It didn't
Right.
matter where the character was from.
Edward Norton's like soft spoken, like was as the whatever he was in the
Like
Nazi
a-
regime, or
yeah.
sorry, the Zigzag Brigade. I don't know what they're called. Just yeah.
Yeah. Edward Norton came off as like a very convincing kind of, you know, you could see that kind of person in the ranks of the SS, like just very unassuming, kind of like, I don't, you know, I'm a fascist, but I'm just a guy. Like,
Yeah. You know, what was it? They're on the train. He's like, well, listen, we're sophisticated.
Yeah. Like, I will kill you, but only if I really have to.
Oh boy. And yeah.
So this movie was actually inspired by the works of author Stefan Zweig.
Okay.
So I wonder if that actually has something to do with the fact that we're like listening to an author, or we're listening to somebody write in a journal about a book, the autobiography of this author. And I wonder if that's why they added that in.
Yeah, I did think about that because I didn't know that before, and then I saw it pop up in the credits, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what this author wrote that inspired this movie." Now I want to go read it.
Kind of, yeah. I'm trying to think of like some questions for it, but like I don't know where to begin, to be completely honest. Do you view it as more of like a comedy or like a tragedy?
Again, that's hard already, right? Like, because there's so many comedic like so many comedy beats, but overall,
I think it's more of a comedy with a tragic backdrop. Like I like how at the end, and major spoiler here in case you haven't already tuned out if you haven't seen the movie, but the death of Monsieur whatever H Monsieur was just very much glossed over. Like, oh, and then what happened? Yeah, they killed him. That's it.
Yeah.
Like,
if you want to talk about that's glossed over, the fact that he kept the Grand Budapest Hotel, he says he does it for Agatha. And boy, oh boy, did he gloss over the fact that she died. It was like
died in childbirth. Yeah.
Died in childbirth.
With their child from like a disease, like a fictional disease that killed millions in this fictional world.
Which is an interesting thing that he kept the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. Does anybody else have an opinion on whether it was a comedy or a tragedy before I talk about it? From my point of view?
No, I think it's mostly a comedy. It is, I think all of his movies sort of have this thing where like all of the adults sort of talk like children and all of the children sort of talk like adults, and it creates this sort of like comedic atmosphere even when violent things are happening. Well, I mean, it's not just the dialogue that's creating that atmosphere. It's of course like the cinematography and the production design and everything else, but the tone is a bit hard to describe, but I do think it's mostly comedic, but then his movies often have these moments that are sort of like gut punches, or at least it seems like they're designed that way to be like a punch of tragedy, and it's sort of it maybe shocks the audience a bit out of the comedic tone. So it's a very interesting like combination of comedy and tragedy. But yeah, it's I would mostly call it comedic though.
Yeah, I think a lot of the tragic moments are kind of punctuation marks more than they are like, here, pay attention to this sad thing. Like, they're just because oftentimes some kind of like death or a tragic moment will present itself, and then immediately afterward is predicated by a joke. So
right.
Yeah, like there's the moment that I always remember from Darjeeling Limited is where like the brothers are watching those Indian boys cross the river, and Owen Wilson is like, look at these assholes. And then the boys fall into the river, and the main characters, the brothers, suddenly want to save them. But it ends tragically because at least one of the boys dies in the river. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it might just be one boy, but still, it's like this comedic moment that suddenly turns like what do you call it, like thrilling, and then it suddenly turns tragic, and it's sort of it seems like his movies are often like balancing that. So I would say like the execution of, even though it's an off-screen execution of Gustav is like one of those moments where it's like it's comedic and then it turns tragic, and he's sort of always balancing these two things.
So what do you think the theme of the movie was? I ask this now because I have like an idea of what I think the theme personally is, and I think it's educated by my answer to the
That's a tough one, right? Like an overarching theme, right? Like the theme is friendships. Again, not to steal from your AI written, but the connections that we forge, right? Like it's a girl reading a biography, and all the how many things had to lead up to that, and how just short. Like even he made friends in prison, right? And we got to learn about those characters who were interesting, and by the escape, we actually kind of cared for those different characters.
And even the whole reason why he kept a hold of the Grand Budapest Hotel, even when it was like in decline and not making any money and was just like a money pit, he still maintained it because of a relationship that he had with a woman when he was like 18.
Yeah.
That lasted for like 3 years. So it's like,
if that long.
Yeah. I kind of view this movie as a tragedy because to me it's more about being stuck in a time frame. Like he even says at the end that Monsieur Gustave H was like a man who was living, like his time was already extinct as he was living in it. He has maintained this hotel despite its crumbling thing. It's a autobiography where a man's describing a thing that was told to him. It's a lot of people holding on to what they view as like a good time in their past.
Or a time.
Yeah, or a time in the past. But like they're all like hanging on to that as like a form of identity, and was to me like the overarching thing, and that to me makes this movie extremely sad. And the fact that they gloss over the reason why they're stuck in that time frame is interesting.
Right. I guess nostalgia, right, is a big part of that, of being.
Yeah, and I think Gustav's whole way about him is kind of a reflection of that, because he clings to these elderly women who, yes, he wants their money, but also I think he really cares for them, and like he knows that he's going to outlive them and they are relics of the past, and yet he maintains these relationships for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, he is all about maintenance of just like his relationships, of a hotel, like of his own like presentation to the world. I love every single time that he decides that he needs to start quoting poetry, only for the moment to pass and just be like, oh, thank God.
Or like going into it at the most inopportune times,
right?
Like when the alarm at the prison that you just broke out of starts to sound.
Yeah, I think nostalgia is pretty much the biggest theme that I would say, and it's also just in the story structure of like the movie opening with this girl visiting the statue of this author who's dead now, and then jumping back to 1985 where the author is filming something, like he's starting to narrate his story, and then it jumps back again to the other story, and then again to the main story in the 30s. But I think it's kind of like this nostalgia for old Europe before like the Nazis took over, even though these are fictional Nazis. I think it's like in the train scene, the first train scene where he's traveling with Zero to visit like the funeral or whatever of Madame D. He has this line of dialogue after they get roughed up and harassed by the soldiers, and then Edward Norton calls off the soldiers. Gustav says something like, there is still a bit of civilization in this barbaric world, and we provide that to people, or something like that. So I think overall it's kind of the Grand Budapest Hotel. It sort of represents this old Europe where it was very class-based, but everyone sort of had decorum, and they respected the lobby boys, and all of the other hotels in this chain sort of have the same system where there's this lobby boy and the hotel manager having this very like deep connection with each other, it seems. But yeah, it's kind of like nostalgia seems to be, and yeah, like Beckett said, it's also reflected in just his choice of romantic partners, like romancing all of these old women, which also has to do because he wants them to be guests at the hotel, but he does seem to prefer older women, I guess.
Older blonde women,
Yeah, older
specifically.
blonde. Yeah, it does
Because
seem
they
to
were
point
like,
to-
yeah, because they were like him. Like it said, Zero pointed out at the end, where like
Mhm.
he realized that they were all exactly the same, and even in the end, he was rich too.
He was rich and blonde, but he never got to be old. I kind of just like, as we were saying this, I thought about it while I was watching it, but I kind of just clicked in my head. It's just about the fall of the Austria-Hungarian Empire.
I mean, it definitely has an anti-fascist message, which I didn't remember, and also seems very kind of timely for today.
Which is unfortunate.
Very.
Yeah, that's right.
To say the least.
I feel like I have this with all Wes Anderson movies because he has such a like a fun, whimsical style of like you're always feel like you're looking into like somebody's life. Like this isn't the real world. This is like you watching people like in a little glass cage. I think there's the famous analogy of Wes Anderson of everything is a dollhouse. And these are just like the dolls in the dollhouse.
Well, I definitely get that feeling from this movie, especially with and I didn't know that they had used miniatures for a lot of these set pieces and stuff.
Yeah.
So
But I always get so overwhelmed with his visual style that I think I forget the plot of most of his movies. Like the stories are like good. He tells a good story and it's done well, but it just gets so overshadowed by his like the visual storytelling part of it that I kind of just always forget it.
Yeah,
that's how I
yeah,
felt about the Royal Tenenbaums.
Right.
Yeah, I got exactly the same feeling rewatching all of his live action movies before this. Yeah, it does get overwhelming, like the symmetry and like deciding what to look at in the frame and just things of that nature. Yeah, it seems like I just always forget the plot. I didn't remember any of the plots for the most part in any of the movies that I rewatched. So, yeah, I definitely get the same feeling.
It's kind of nice in a way. Then you just get to watch the like movie again and you're just like, "Oh,
Yeah. It's new again.
Yeah.
Right.
And somehow that's not a bad thing for Wes Anderson movies. In
Well,
my opinion.
I know his new one, the what's the new
Asteroid City.
Asteroid City? Yeah, the reviews are like it's all style and no substance. I'm like, yeah, that's
That's the point.
what. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Yeah, man, miniatures were great. I mean, how many times do we laugh at like the skiing, the miniatures is like,
Yeah.
they're off on a. What are we gonna do when we catch them? Oh, I don't know. We shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. I think I think one of my favorite moments from the movie was when like speaking of like glossing over tragic moments and making a joke out of it, when what's his name, when the assassin throws the cat out the window.
Oh,
and and I can't think of anybody's name right now, but
yeah, Willem Dafoe.
Here you go. Here's
yeah,
the
here's-
list.
yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, I know Jeff Goldblum, duh, I love him, but like I
Kovacs.
just was blanking on his name, but he's like, did he just throw my cat out the window? And the sisters are like, "Huh, I don't know what you're talking about. No idea what you're talking about." And then you see the cat just like splat
Just
on
cartoony,
the
yeah,
cement, and it's
Looney Tunes.
yeah, super funny. And also that wouldn't happen. Cats land on their feet, and they can survive drops from like 6 stories up. So, but
Sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes.
But that's what makes it funny.
Yeah.
And then also the scene that Derek brought up earlier, where just all the concierges at the hotels around the world like all know each other and all have this like secret code, that like
Society of the Crossed Keys.
that they help each other out when in need and stuff. I thought that was a fun scene. You get to
Wait.
see a little window into each of these hotels and
They
what
were
they're
almost
about.
like Tim Burton-y moments. Like the reason they got the tools into prison is they disguised them as high-end pastries. And so it's clearly like a hammer and like a chisel, but it's all decorated. And it's like there's weird little cartoon moments, but for a dark subject matter. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if we've gotten to that part of the conversation yet, but I enjoyed that movie quite a bit. It was a fun watch.
Do you want to do the rating system though, Ryan?
Oh yeah, we could do the rating system. Let me pull up my notes. I don't remember. If you remember off the top of your head, you should just say it.
So usually, I think I've brought this up before. I do like a rating system so that we judge things separately. And I'm trying to figure out how I would judge this movie. So it's done on a scale of 1 to 5. How technically proficient was it? How was the story? How was the acting?
I got
And then
writing, acting, technical, and then enjoyment.
yes, and then 10 points for enjoyment because that's the most important thing. And honestly, I'm trying to figure out how to rate it because technically it was exactly what I expected from a Wes Anderson movie. It was
also very well executed.
Mm-hmm. It was done exactly how I imagined he wanted it in his head. There weren't like moments where I was like, "Oh, what's happening here?" It was from start to finish completely stylized. And then, so yeah, do you want to like do it category by category or just one person at a time?
Or why don't we find them? Yeah, well, we'll have a number for each one and we'll figure it out.
All right, so technical.
Yeah. All right, you want to start with technical? I say 4 out of 5. Because it was.
I say perfect for technical because I mean, it is just what he does, and he just sort of executes it perfectly. I think 5 out of 5 for technical.
I will say there were a lot of bumps in those camera moves, and there's some green screening I noticed in the when he's in the snow. I'm just saying, it's perfect. Is a strong word. I don't give out the word perfect a lot.
Yeah. I'm also giving it a 5 in technical because I didn't notice any of that, but I did hear Ryan talk about it. And even with him doing that, I still didn't like look for it at all. So I will stick with my 5.
Yeah, I think I'd give it a 5 for tech only because it is exactly what it's meant to be. Like, it's not supposed to be a perfect, like, smooth pan every time. Like, it's supposed to be Wes Anderson.
Mm-hmm. The point about the green screen is something I forgot about, but that is something I noticed, and I do think that is kind of a bad imperfection. Whereas, like, if you watch the Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's technically full of imperfections, like in the motion, but the imperfections are supposed to be there because he didn't want to use computers to smooth it all out. So I think like some of the bumps in camera moves are probably, they're the type of imperfection that makes it better in a way, but
Okay.
Yeah.
the point
That's-
of the green screen is the only thing that I would say is a
Well,
bad imperfection.
here's a counterpoint. It was supposed to be that way.
You
Because
say that.
I like, and how I said, like, it is exactly what it's meant to be, which is campy, cheesy, you know, fantasy out of this world, not real, you know? So in that aspect, if you notice the green screen, it pulls you out, which is the point.
I disagree.
I also disagree with that, but I didn't notice the green screen edit, so I will assume that I was too engrossed to notice it, so I can't count it.
Well, think about the scene where they're sledding down the mountain. Like, that's obviously not supposed to be technically realistic.
Right. There's cartoon in the there's the Bugs Bunny cartoon that we're living in, or that this movie exists in. But there's also, I'm just saying, perfect's a very strong word, and I guarantee that the green screening was not what he intended it. I think that came down to it had to come out.
I don't know. I didn't. I am with Rebecca. I didn't even notice. So
that's fine. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There's a difference between a mistake, but even when I'm judging like the technical, it's not about like how accurately did you portray. Like it's just like on a technical level. I guess cinematography is usually what I describe that as. Like, how was the visualness of it?
Yeah,
because there's a lot of movies that don't have mistakes in it, but aren't visually appealing and are just kind of bleb.
Right, and there's a lot of movies that have lots of mistakes in them that you don't even care about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I would still kind of say that the green screen is on the bad side of imperfections, because there could have been, even if you're wanting to stay in this diorama dollhouse world, there would be other ways to achieve the sledding effect that wouldn't involve compositing or anything. Like if you watch the movies of Roy Anderson, the Swedish director who like literally makes dioramas and then uses them as special effects. His movies, like, I don't think have green screen or that type of thing in them. He would just like make a cardboard to do the sledding scene. He would just make a cardboard cutout of like trees or whatever, and then make them zip by. I mean, it would look better than cardboard, but still, like, yeah, I don't know. Perfect is a strong word, but I don't know. It's hard to, I don't know. I could go either way on that, I think.
Sure. I'm just like, I've worked on plenty of movies where the focus was, I've seen, like Interstellar, right, is a amazing film. There's a scene where the focus is off the entire scene. And the entire scene, it's on the tip of his nose and not his eyes, and I couldn't look past it. Anyway, that's just
and not because it was out of focus.
Just it was I couldn't
you
focus,
couldn't look, yeah,
because the focus was off. And I get, like, even like The Lighthouse. There's the Willem Dafoe, like his big speech, which is an amazing speech, but he drifts out of focus because he leaned too far back and the focus assist didn't either pull or whatever it was, and you can't ask him to do it again. Right, like you don't get that performance and be like, can we get that one more time, it was a little soft. Those are just those are things I noticed, but I'm just saying, like, you can watch The Room, right, which was not a good movie and it had a lot of technical problems but was still enjoyable. I'm just saying perfect's a strong word. I say a 4, maybe 4.5.
All right, and let's
Moving
talk
on.
about acting, like the performances.
3.
I was gonna say 3 too.
Yeah, I might. It's another one that's hard to judge. I might say 4 because he's definitely. I mean, the actors are not supposed to be realistic in this movie. They're supposed to be sort of deadpan and like doing this weird theatrical kind of style, but they execute that style very well. So it's hard to judge. Like, I think I would go with 4 because the execution of that specific style is well done.
Yeah, I think I said 3 only because the 2 leads do a very good job at what they were hired to do, and their delivery is very comedic and well done. But like everyone else was just hired to be themselves.
Right.
They didn't really do any acting.
I'm going to go with 4 because I don't know how to judge it, but I did enjoy their acting, and I don't, like I said, I don't know how to judge this movie. I think that this is actually one of the hardest movies I've ever had to like discuss things with, because like I can say, oh, it's a 4, but I don't actually have a reasoning why.
Like the fact that Harvey Keitel sat in a middle, like a Central European prison in the 1930s with a New Jersey accent.
Sure.
Come on.
Sure, you know. Right. And that's it, right? Other than Gustav, and you know, for the most part there weren't any like breakout performances that I was
No.
like, wow, that just stole the scene, because it wasn't it wasn't necessarily about them. They were kind of just like giving you the, you know, the comic.
A lot of characters were just props for this
Listen,
movie.
2.5 is average, all right? I gave it a 3. It was better than average. That should a solid C for sure. C plus. I'll give it C plus.
Moving on to story.
Story/writing.
Yeah, story/writing.
I gave it a 4. I think it was like narratively, like pacing wise was weird. Like, and it was broken down, I think 5 acts, right? Like, 'cause we kept jumping chapters. But it was just so well thought out, and like the story kept moving.
Yeah, I would give it a 5 only because I thought that some of the pacing and the comedic timing like was done to really good effect. Like especially the long awkward pauses. I've got a real kick out of those. And a lot of directors would be like would shy away from doing stuff like that, but this film I think did it really well, and I think it added to the comedic value.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with what people are saying. I think I might give it a 4. It's kind of the same thing that I feel about a lot of Wes Anderson's movies, that it's kind of his style that he's used for over 20 years now, and it's executed well. And so yeah, I would like this, like I kind of said before, the dialogue style that he typically uses is that the adults talk somewhat childishly and the children talk like adults, and it's kind of the same here. And I think it also feels a bit like all of the characters have the same voice in a way, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's, I don't know, like I keep saying, it's his style and executed well, so I would give it a 4. And I did find a lot of the dialogue to be funny, so yeah, I would also give it points for like the comedic timing and just some specific lines of dialogue and things like that.
I also go with 4 because I just really enjoy how whimsical this terribly dark story was.
Yeah, again,
and I think a lot
Gustav
of it is in the writing. So
yeah.
And then last but not least, enjoyment on a scale of 1 to 10.
Let's go first.
I'm gonna go with 8. Sorry,
Same.
I beat 10.
No, I gave it 8.
What? 8.
I was going to say 8 too. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it's not one of my favorite movies ever.
There were some dips, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely upon rewatching it, I would also give it an 8, I think. It is weird how I completely forgot every single thing that happened in this movie since the time that it came out. So I wonder, like, is that an imperfection or is it like, I don't know, but at this point in time, I enjoyed rewatching it. So yeah, I would give it an 8.
Came out 9 years ago.
Yeah, it's one of those weird movies where I want to rate it highly, but I don't want to give it like a 5 stars. Like, it doesn't feel like a 5-star movie, but I don't actually have a lot of things to like knock points off. And
Yeah,
in that regard, it's just really weird to me.
For some reason, I didn't remember that this only came out 9 years ago. Like, I thought it was released in high school when I was like in high school.
I thought that it was released while I was in college, and it was not. It was a couple of years
no,
after
I
that,
wasn't
so.
even in college. Like, I did not remember that this was such a recent movie. I was thinking it was released in like 2004 or something.
Yeah.
It also kind of has that feel about it. Like, the Wes Anderson style in general is like kind of timeless, and just because of the way that he does it. Yeah.
The nostalgia for it, yeah, of a different time. The past was so much better.
Except for those diseases that don't exist anymore, and the whole
fascism,
and
wars, and
well, wars
everything
were
else
always going on. But anyway,
which I don't know if you guys kept track of your scores, but usually I add them all up and then divide them by 5 so that I get my actual 5 scale. I do a lot of math for this for no real reason, and it comes out to a 4.2.
Wow, I gave it 3.8.
I don't even remember what I said.
Well, you said for writing, you said 4, and then you said 5, or no? What did you say?
No, I think I gave 5s and then 8.
I like.
No, I said 4 for acting.
Okay.
Oh no, 3.
I think you said a 3 for acting.
I did. Yes.
I like doing it this way because, like, when you're just like, oh, on a scale of 1 to 5, like, what did you like? Like, the scaling is different, but when I do like the math on it, I'm always surprised where things land.
So you gave it a 4.2, it seems like.
Yep. So my score is a 4.2.
Yeah, it looks like my score is also 4.2.
Yeah, I think we had the same scores like across the board. Derek and I are on the same page.
I think I gave it a 5.3.
That's not possible.
That's not how math do.
It's out of 5, so that's very impressive. You really
I divided it by the wrong.
That's all good.
Hang on.
I think yours is also a 4.2.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I used the wrong divider. Wait, now I'm getting my math is all over the place.
It's all.
No one should ever trust me to do math.
But yeah, 3.8 for me. Not bad. It's still pretty good.
Yeah, 4.2.
I don't think there exists a perfect movie other than Tommy Boy, which is the best movie ever made. But just.
Anyway. I actually think that Parasite came very, very close. I think Parasite came in at 4.8 for me, is what I have written down here. And it probably only comes in at 4.8 because I think I took a point off in enjoyment.
You took 1 point off for enjoyment, huh? Okay, let me do.
Weren't expecting to do so much math in movie club, were you?
All right, so I just rated Parasite at a 4. Just now. Not the best movie. Not the best movie ever made. I'm just saying that doesn't exist.
It's no Tommy Boy.
I haven't made it yet. It's not Tommy Boy. The perfect film.
That's it for me. So unless anybody else has anything to add, I think we're coming to a close for the evening.
And technically, Tommy Boy's a 4.8, the best movie ever made. So, good luck.
I have the opposite thing with books, where I read a book that was so bad once that I rated it as a 1, and I haven't read a book that deserves to be in the same category with how bad that book was.
I would not read it. I would just put it down.
We can't just not finish it.
Yeah. What if it gets really good? No, it was very, very short, and I was on a plane. Anyways, so I don't know, but like putting things in like the 5-star category, like it has to be like amazing. And I think you're right. I don't think that there exists a perfect film. And I think for me, I think Parasite got very, very close.
It was good. But
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's how I felt about The World According to Garp. I never finished it because it got so boring.
Ryan is the most judgmental person I've ever met.
How dare you?
He will give you feedback, but just know that he hates everything.
That's not true. I have very strong opinions about things.
As one should.
Yeah.
Points off because I saw green screen once.
If you're always in the middle
if you're
of
saying
everything,
it's perfect, there's no flaws. That's a flaw. At best, 4.9. All right, like you can't have a 5 and a mistake.
But are we talking like technical execution or like technical like adherence to, you know, like
I always say cinematography because so like essentially from my viewpoint on how I do this, it's like how well did the actors do, how well did the writers do, how well did like the crew do. Specifically, I think of like the director of photography and like set design.
Yeah.
Right, but you also have
so like the
sound
visual
in there
storytelling
too, right?
versus
Yeah, I think there is no movie with 0 mistakes. Like every movie is going to have at least
Thank
some.
you. That's what I'm saying.
Which is why I don't think it's very fair to rate them on mistakes.
Well, then they shouldn't have made them. Listen, you can do a movie without any mistakes. It might be an expensive reshoot. It might have to get.
That's debatable. I don't know about that.
Okay.
I'm gonna go
You
watch
think-
every single movie you've ever filmed, Ryan, and just point out every time that something's slightly out of focus.
I'll be there with you.
I am a continuity nerd, and I did notice some continuity errors, and I was like, Script Soup was not doing their job.
Or again, I imagine it's Wes Anderson being like, no, it's good. No, I like that one better.
Or just been like, nah, no one will notice. It's fine.
Right.
He's very hard to technically judge because you're just like, was it a mistake or was it on purpose? We'll never know.
Right. It's the trouble with genius, isn't it?
All right, so we are closing in on an hour. Does anybody have any final thoughts for the evening? Specifically on the Grand Budapest Hotel?
Thought it was great.
Yeah. Not necessarily. I think like overall rewatching all of his movies, I kind of think of him a bit like the ancient Egyptians now, who's kept the same artistic style for like 1,000 years. And so I just think Wes Anderson is kind of like that, where he just keeps doing the same things over and over again, but he does them very well. So it kind of like I forgive the sameness in him, whereas with like I don't know, with some other guy, I can't even think of another director, but like sometimes when a director keeps doing the same type of story, it's just kind of like, well, try something new. Like stop.
Like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Yeah, like for a while, M. Night was always using twists in his movies, and that kind of became a meme about him. So yeah, that would be one example where he like got stuck in a rut of using a twist, and
but there's not a lot of directors who have a visual, like you said, like that very specific visual language that Like even auteurs and what have you. Like Tarantino has a look, right? Like you can tell a Tarantino film, but it doesn't, like early Burton, right? There's that Tim Burton look, but he since kind of like went commercial with it, and it hasn't been good since Mars Attacks. I don't know if there's any other mainstream directors with.
Yeah, Tarantino's look though is more about like his dialogue editing and pacing, and less about the visual look of
You're right. You're right. But I can't think of another director in that, like in the same class as Wes Anderson in terms of artistic visualization.
Continuity.
I mean, I think Burton would be the closest.
Yeah, but again, I watched a re-review. You ever watch Red Letter Media? Shout out to Red Letter Media. They did a review of Mars Attacks, and it's not even a full movie. It's like, and thinking back now, right? Like it's a start of a movie, and then a bunch of little vignettes of the Martians having fun, and then like the conclusion. And I'm like, I guess that's right. And I just was young, and it was a bunch of fun little aliens having a good time. I don't know. But yeah, weird.
But yeah, I agree that like Wes Anderson in a way kind of stands alone with staying this consistent over decades of time, and there's not really anyone else quite like him. But I think in like the 2000s there were a bunch of people in the indie film world who tried to imitate his style, but all those people have sort of fallen away. Like Napoleon Dynamite was kind of an attempt at imitating him. But yeah, I think he'll just continue making this type of movie until he dies, and they'll all be pretty good, hopefully.
Yeah, not the best, not the worst, pretty good.
Yeah. Visually very good.
I think Kubrick maybe, like it wasn't quite as distinct, but he definitely had,
Yeah. Wes Anderson is an interesting one because he just, I know what I'm getting from a Wes Anderson movie, and I'm also completely willing to just like push a bunch of stuff to the side. Like the fact that like people are like, oh, there's no substance to Asteroid City, and I'm like, yeah, there's probably not supposed to be, and I'm still just like, oh, we're gonna go see it.
Yeah. I mean, Alien. It's a movie about aliens coming, like, but in a Wes Anderson movie. There's a trend now, I guess, to have AI art generation of people keep just like throwing. What if the Muppets were, like, what if Star Wars was a Wes Anderson movie? And it's just there's not a lot of other filmmakers who could have that. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, like really quickly, like I've noticed on TikTok it's been trending that people have been making Wes Anderson shorts of themselves where they're just like, and they set it to the music from The French Dispatch. So you should look up. Some of them are pretty good actually. Like they're shot in vertical cell phone style, so it's not like widescreen Wes Anderson composition, but it's yeah, if you're looking for, I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's also sort of incredible that he's still in the popular culture enough to be memed on TikTok.
Right.
And like after all of this time. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I feel, I mean, as a millennial, I feel like it's more of a millennial thing to like be into Wes Anderson, but that could just be my perception.
Yeah, some of them on TikTok look like they're Gen Z, but it's it's hard to know what else to say about Wes Anderson except that he's very unique and he's good at his specific style. I sometimes think that it would be interesting to see him do something completely different, like just a cinema verite movie about like the Vietnam War or something, or like
a hard drama. Yeah.
He's definitely carved out a place in the cultural zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
Or an action movie. What do you think of Wes Anderson just like full on shoot 'em up style action flick.
I feel like Norma always comes in at the end of these calls and it's like, we're done now.
Yeah, it's time to eat. What are you doing?
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me this evening, and I hope that anybody who's still out there watching, I hope that you enjoyed this discussion. I hope that you enjoyed the movie, and I will be announcing our next picks on Wednesday, so in a couple of days here.
Ooh.
Wait, Wednesday or Thursday? One of those days.
Wednesday. I don't know. Thursday.
Yeah, so soon. And hope to hear from you guys all then.
Yeah.
So, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.